The first speaker of the evening is somebody who has made Victoria very proud. In the last federal election, he was elected to the Senate, and since getting elected has been a constant voice speaking up for this country, speaking up for our children, and pushing back against any force anywhere throughout our institutions that undermines their integrity. I'd like you, please, to make him feel very, very welcome and put your hands together for Senator Ralph Babbitt.
Thanks, Bud. That's very nice of you. Thank you.
What an intro. Thank you, Morgan. Thank you. Morgan and I actually go way back. We've known each other for a very long time now. We were in the trenches together, so to speak. He and I, and of course, you know, it's a pleasure being here tonight, everyone. I appreciate the invite, Morgan. Thank you. Look, a bit about me. I'm not well, I am now, begrudgingly a politician, but I never started out wanting to be a politician. I never started out, wanting to lord over my local community or my state or my electorate or anything like that. I'm just a normal person from the suburbs, from the southeastern suburbs, who just had enough. I just had enough of what the people that were in power were doing to this beautiful country that I love so much, and I decided that I had to put my hand up and do something about it. I decided that, complaining on social media wasn't enough anymore. I had to get into that big house on the hill, and I had to make my voice heard, because I knew that even though I'm very good at speaking, I was a real estate agent before being elected. I knew I had a voice. Don't hold it against me. Don't hold it against me. I knew I had a voice. I knew I could use it. I knew there were a lot of people around me, just in my family, in my circle of friends, that didn't have that ability potentially to stand in front of a camera or field questions from reporters and things like that, and I did. And I said, you know what? No, I have to get up. I have to put my hand up. I have to go to that big house on the hill, and I have to bring the voice of the people that don't have a voice right now to Canberra. That's why I did it. And for those of you that are thinking that you might be that person, you have to do it. You have to do it, because if you don't do it, we're going to lose Australia. Make no mistake, Australia is on the precipice right now of being lost. So look, obviously it's a pleasure to be here this evening. That goes without saying. I'm amongst like-minded people. It feels a little bit like I'm preaching to the choir or preaching to the converted, but that's okay. You need to know that you have representation in Canberra, and I need to know that when I'm in there getting yelled at by almost everyone in that building, being called all sorts of terrible names, that there are people here that have my back, because they're not in Canberra, they're around here in the suburbs. I need that. I need that. So I stand firmly with all of you here today, in seeking to do what we all can do to protect the most innocent in our community, our nation's children. Now, this issue must be close to all our hearts. It has to be. I'll tell you why. Because it is close to the heart of God. It's close to the heart of God. Now, the psalmists wrote that children are a blessing and a gift from the Lord. Elsewhere, they wrote that parents should train up a child in the way that he should go, so that when he is old, he will not depart from it. It's pretty clear from Scripture, from the Scriptures, that God has ordained parents, not the nanny state, not the big government, to raise children. Okay? That's what God said. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. And so, I believe that as a matter of principle, in the fundamental right of a parent to raise their child free from the indoctrination or the influence of the woke Marxist extremists. The woke Marxist extremists. I believe in simply just allowing kids to be kids. It's it, simple. The state's got no place in intervening in the role of a parent, which is what they're trying to do. They're trying to get between you and your child. This is classic Marxism. Classic. They have no right to indoctrinate or confuse the nation's youth. There's perhaps no greater trust, in my opinion, than the trust that we give to schools, for example, when we give them the responsibility to look after our most precious, our children. Look, it used to be the case once upon a time, at least when I was a kid, not that long ago, that when you dropped off your child at school, you knew exactly what your child was going to be taught. Yeah. Reading, writing, and arithmetic, that's about it. Sadly, those days are gone. I hear from parents all the time. These days, your child is more likely to graduate with, barely passable English or barely passable maths, barely passable writing skills, possibly just enough math to work out how much change you get from $2 when you buy a $1 item. Possibly that's it. But you know what? You're told this. Don't worry about your child graduating with, good math skills, because maths is less important than radical gender theory. Well, heck, I don't know if you've seen this article. Math is apparently even racist now. Have you seen that? Maths is racist, you bigots. How dare you want your child to learn maths? How dare you? Kids won't even be able to do basic maths without a calculator. That's probably already happening now. But you know what? They're going to know what the 76 genders are, though. That they'll know. Well, I think we're up to more now. Last time 80? 85 genders or whatever the heck. Crazy, right? There's one thing that I want to talk about here, and this is kind of serious, so I just want to get serious for 1 second. Have you heard of something called respectful relationships? You've heard of that? I've heard of it too. Now, it sounds innocuous, right? And that's the whole point. It's designed to lull parents into a false sense of security while you're out at work, busy keeping a roof over your heads, going to work, earning $1, paying the mortgage. Our state's educators are teaching kids, in my opinion, the most egregious of sex acts. You think I exaggerate? I know you do. I'll tell you about this. Who's heard of the book called Welcome to Sex? A few of you have. I've heard of it too. Disgusting that book is. It's the title of a book aimed at children. Now, the author of the book, and I quote, she said that she would be happy for what she describes as a mature 8-year-old to read it. Now, a mature 8-year-old does not exist. Does not exist. Now, this book, you'd think, just some fringe crazy person book. No. This book has been shortlisted for the Prime Minister's Literary Awards for this year. This book details all sorts of sex acts, which I would not even dare mention in this room full of adults, because I'd blush. I'm brown, but I'd still blush, right? I would still blush. The progressive left, you know what? They don't even pretend anymore. They don't pretend now. They have an agenda, and that is to hypersexualize kids. Well, I say to you, these people aren't clever. These people aren't enlightened. These people aren't progressive, and none of those things. These people are gross. They're disgusting. Thank you. These people are evil. They are evil people. They must be made to leave the kids alone. It's as simple as that. Simple as that. The transformation of our public schools, the transformation over the years, over the decades. We're now looking at, in my opinion, indoctrination centres. That's what they're becoming. It's so far advanced now that nothing surprises me now. I'll give you another example. Just some months ago, there was a school in South Australia called the Renmark High School. Who heard of that case of Renmark High School? Quite a few of you have. Now, children were given a presentation on what they called respectful relationships at Renmark High School. These children said, this is what the kids said, that bestiality was explained in great detail to them. And the presenter seemed to imply that that's something that was practiced by LGBTQIA2S plus people. Did I get that right? Is that all the acronyms? Okay. Now, students said, and I quote, this is what the student said, "We are all just sitting there like, what the hell? What are we doing here? Why are we learning about animals having sex with humans? It was really disgusting. It was really uncomfortable," end quote. That's what she said. Now, some of these students, they made excuses to get out of the classroom. "Oh, teacher, I need to go toilet." And they just didn't come back. These students have now been offered counselling by the school, right? Now, it's ironic, isn't it? It's a bit ironic, right? Schools are desperate to teach kids about consent, but deliberately ignore parental consent. Because, of course, the parents were not told about any of this. They only found out after the fact when the kids came home disgusted and, rightly so, and told their parents about it. That's how the parents found out, okay? Terrible stuff. I was also disgusted to learn that last year, some publicly funded schools held drag shows for children in school. Now, why would these schools pay biological men to dress as caricatures of highly sexualized women and then perform for the kids and then not tell the parents? What the hell is that about? Why do children need to see drag queens? Why? More importantly, why do drag queens try so hard to perform for children? What about go to the old folks' home? I'm sure they'd appreciate having a laugh. What about at the TAB? What about that instead, right? Why do you want to fight so hard to have an audience with kids? It's a good question, I think. And it's a great question, and one which needs to be answered. It really does. And whether you think drag queens are appropriate or not appropriate for kids, what we can most definitely agree upon is that you should be telling the parents when such a contentious issue is in front of you. Now, education. It's supposed to be a partnership. It's partnership between the home and the school. But may I say, in that partnership, the school is secondary to the home. Secondary. The home comes first. Now, Moses, he told the ancient Israelites, here's what he said. He said, impress the laws of God upon your children. Something along those lines. I'm obviously paraphrasing. Something along those lines. And in Deuteronomy, he said this. He said, talk about the law of God when you sit at home, when you walk along the road, when you lie down, and when you get up. That's a quote. In other words, nothing is more important for parents than taking responsibility for the education of their children. And that education it should be in wisdom, it should be in righteousness, and it should be in godliness. Yes. That's what it should be in, not what we're seeing today. It's why we can't be passive. Can't be passive when it comes to children's education, to your children's education. You've got to be an active participant. Too often, there is not only a lack of transparency in this whole process about what children are being exposed to or taught at school, there is in fact deliberate secrecy. I'll give you an example, okay? In Victoria and in Queensland, we have teachers that are being directed to keep a child's social gender transition secret from their parents. Did you know that? So your child goes to school, and in school your child will, identify as a girl and have a different girl's name. And the teacher will call that child the girl's name if the child's a boy. And they don't tell you when you go pick up your child what's going on. I think that's wrong. Parents should be a part of that process from start to finish. No secrecy. Now, the Labor governments, they've allowed this to happen, and it's outrageous, obviously. But the Liberal governments, they're too cowardly to make this a key election issue, too cowardly to talk about. And I think this is a grave injustice, okay? Because the culture of today will become the politics of tomorrow. So if you don't engage in these cultural things, guess what? It's going to become ingrained, and it's here to stay. You've got to catch it now. You've got to catch it now. Now, if the two major political parties in our country don't want to speak up for the safety of children and the rights of the parents, who will? You have to. You've got to speak up. Now, this is an issue that's obviously very important to me. It's one of the key issues that drove me to put my hand up for the Senate, because I had just had enough. I had enough of the, anti-human, anti-God, radical Marxist agenda, which is the agenda that I'm surrounded with every time I go to Canberra. There is definitely an anti-God agenda at play in Canberra. Make absolutely no mistake about that. Make no mistake. I sometimes feel when I walk into that place like I'm surrounded by satanic forces. That's what I feel like. And when I come back from Canberra, I feel like I just have to have a hot shower and sit down and meditate for 5 or 10 minutes just to get those evil spirits off me. Maybe that's just me, but that's just how I feel. Now, last year in Canberra, myself, Senator Malcolm Roberts, Senator Alex Antic, Senator Matthew Canavan, we were proud to stand together in solidarity. We're all from different parties, of course, as you would know, to co-sponsor and introduce a bill called the Childhood Gender Transition Prohibition Bill 2023. Simple bill. We just said, hey, you know what? We need to restrict sex change medication and sex change surgery for minors. Now, I would have thought that this was common sense. It would pass flying colours, no issue. Nope. This bill is likely to be unsupported by the majority of your elected members, from what I've been gathering around the halls of Parliament. Terrible. Such a simple bill. Now, this woke agenda, which we're all fighting here, and it manifests itself in all sorts of ways, but today we're talking about kids. This woke agenda, it's run through all of our institutions like a virus infecting a host. That's what it's done, but you know what, ladies and gents, we're the cure. We are the cure to that virus. The average, everyday person standing up and saying, no, I'm not okay with it. Talking to friends, talking to family members, coming to things like this. This is what grassroots activism is. This is how it starts. But the most important thing is you cannot be afraid to speak, and you can never be afraid to lose your voice. You have to use it while you have it, even if it's just within your circles of influence. We all got to do our part. You're doing your part here where you can, and then I'll do my part over in Canberra. Okay, but we all got to play our part in this giant fight that we have on our hands here. We just can't stand by and watch while they destroy Western society. Not just Australia, Western society is under threat here. They're spreading their sickness out into the world like a dark shadow. That's what they're doing. Now, a child under the age of 18 can't get a tattoo, can't buy a beer, can't drive a car, can't go to the pub, can't buy a pack of smokes, can't do any of that. And yet here we're telling this child, hey, you want to cut off your perfectly healthy breasts? Well, how soon can we get this child under a knife? No worries. Crazy. It's dysfunction. It's dysfunction. Why are there people in society right now that are so careful about young people when it comes to buying a packet of cigarettes or a beer, but so cavalier about radical surgeries and chopping off their bits? Yeah. Why is that? 1 minute they're going to say, well, you can't get that butterfly tattoo on your wrist, young lady, you can't do that. You might regret it one day. Oh, you want to cut your boobs off? No worries, come on in. Come on in. No normal, rational person thinks that this is sane or normal or rational. Are you with me on that one? Thank you. Thank you. Look, the number of children that are being treated in gender clinics has shot up through the roof. This is something that we should be very concerned with. It's not something that should excite us. It excites some people on the radical Marxist left. I don't know why, but it shouldn't. We wouldn't give a child a cigarette, so let's not give that child a double mastectomy just because that child has been brainwashed to think that that's what they need. Because no child is born in the wrong body. Amen. Now, politically, thank you. Politically, this fight will definitely continue. This is not over. We have not even seen the beginning of this fight yet. This is going to go on for a very long time, but hopefully we can shorten that time by being very active. So this fight will continue. We've all got a shared responsibility, all of us, to stand firm and protect those that cannot protect themselves from these woke activists, and that's children. Yeah. Children cannot protect themselves. They're not old enough, they're not mature enough. We need to protect them. We've got to protect them from an ever-expanding ideology that has zero basis in biology, zero basis in science, and zero basis in medicine. Zero basis. It's a woke mind virus. That's what it is, as Elon Musk calls it. A woke mind virus. And once again, you in this room are the cure to that virus. You are the cure. So thank you for hosting me tonight. I thank you, Morgan, for having me out here tonight. I really appreciate it. We need to keep up the fight. We cannot ever let up. We need to protect children. We need to preserve the inalienable rights of parents to raise their children without the meddling of the state. Now, one thing, these issues that we're all experiencing right now, not just on this front, but on so many fronts out there, they were created by men and women. That's a good thing, because they can be solved by men and women if you are courageous, if you speak up. Now, the challenges that we are facing, and there are a lot of challenges, we all know that. We're going to do something about them. We are. You're going to do something about them. You are. You're going to do something about it by taking a greater interest in the political process. And I know you are already, but take even more and drag a friend along next time. You're going to do something about it by ensuring that people like me, people
just like me, that are staunch, that will speak, that will not waver in the face of adversity, are elected to Parliament. You are the voice of the future. Every time you volunteer your time, every time you speak up, don't forget, alone, right? Alone, you're weak. I'm weak. But together we are not weak. We are strong, which is why community is so important. So if we stick together, we can make a difference. If we stick together, we can stand up as one. If we stick together, we will make a better tomorrow. We will. If we stick together, we can save our nation. We can keep our nation safe. And we can save our nation's children. God bless you. God bless our nation. Thanks, everyone.